Blog Talk Radio. Blog Talk Radio.
Franchise interviews. From Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia, you're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews. Welcome to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews has been giving an up-close, behind-the-scenes look at franchising and entrepreneurship. Listen to interviews with franchisers, franchisees, franchise authors, franchise experts, and attorneys. And now, welcome your host, Marty McDermott, and Franchise Interviews.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to a very special edition of Franchise Interviews, where for over 9 years we've been asking the entrepreneurs one-on-one. I'm your host, Marty McDermott. I'm the president of Franchise Interviews, and we have a great show today. We're meeting with Brian Tollefson, the CEO and founder of Tikiz Shaved Ice and Ice Cream. And Tikiz Shaved Ice and Ice Cream is a fast-growing mobile franchise specializing in Hawaiian Shaved Ice and Ice Cream. We're going to talk to Brian about that in just a moment on Franchise Interviews. So stick around because we have a great show.
Franchise Teacher.
Would you like to know how to franchise your concept or grow your franchise business?
Meet the experts at Franchise Teacher.
The goal of Franchise Teacher is to teach, coach, consult, and advise. The team of experts at Franchise Teacher will evaluate your business model and present you with a winning business strategy.
Franchise Teacher will help you decide whether or not your concept works and if it's franchisable. Franchise Teacher is proud to have over 30 years of experience in franchising as both franchisees and franchisors.
Franchise Teacher are developers of over a dozen franchise systems, which include brick and mortar as well as home-based concepts of nearly 3,000 combined franchise locations.
Whether you need to add more units or get more customers, Franchise Teacher can help. We will teach.
Franchise Teacher will help you learn our proven system.
Coach.
Franchise Teacher will help you provide a game plan to succeed.
Consult.
Franchise Teacher will make sure you stay on track.
And advise.
Franchise Teacher will help you learn from our over 30 years of experience in franchising as both franchisees and franchisors. Take advantage of our free, no-obligation phone consultation. Simply go to franchiseteacher.com or call us at 561-385-3032.
That's franchiseteacher.com or call us at 561-385-3032.
Hi, this is Connie McDermott, Administrative Assistant for Franchise Interviews, LLC, and you're listening to Franchise Interviews.
Franchise Interviews. From Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia, you're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to a very special edition of Franchise Interviews, where for over 9 years we've been asking the entrepreneurs one-on-one. I'm your host, Marty McDermott, and I'm the president of Franchise Interviews, and as we were saying earlier, we have a great show today. We're meeting with Brian Tollefson, the CEO and founder of Tikiz Shaved Ice and Ice Cream. And Tikiz Shaved Ice and Ice Cream is a fast-growing mobile franchise specializing in Hawaiian Shaved Ice and Ice Cream. Hi, Brian. How you doing? Welcome to the show.
Good, Marty. How you doing? Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Brian. We always like to ask our guests where you're calling from this morning, Brian.
We're located in Boca Raton, Florida.
Oh, that's fantastic. How's the weather there today, Brian?
I have to say it was a rainy week last week for which was kind of odd and out of the ordinary, but it's It's breezy and sunny, and it's good to be in South Florida this time of the year.
I imagine. Yeah, it's cold up here in eastern Pennsylvania, so I kind of envy you a bit. So it's fantastic.
I'm sure.
Yeah, maybe we could talk a little bit about. You have an interesting background, Brian. You could talk a little bit about yourself and what is your role at Tikiz Shaved Ice and Ice Cream.
Sure. I have. I'm 37 years old, and I started in the franchising business since 19. Actually, I actually started my first concept.
Wow.
Which was a smoothie juice bar concept, which actually also had shaved ice. We started that when I was 19, and it was a pretty big hit right out of the gate, and that's how I kind of got steered into franchising right away. So I did that for about a decade, and then my next franchise was a medical weight loss franchise that did very well. So I did that for a couple of years, and while I was building that company, I also kind of started building a side project, which I always want to kind of stay in the somewhat in food of some sorts or beverages of some sorts. So I built the Tikiz concept as a kind of a side project, but it turned into much more than a side project.
That's great. I mean, it's great that you have that background. I mean, you're almost like destined to go into franchising, were you, Brian? I mean, at such a young age. Sure. I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I knew that, but once I had my first business, which, like I said, was very successful. Month one. And lots of people were inquiring, how do I get one of these businesses? How do I buy one of them? Right. It just kind of was a natural progression just to move towards franchising. I think it's great too, Brian, that you have that experience in franchising. Because not in not all cases the franchisor has that ability to kind of relate to being a franchisee. And what it's like. Because of course you've been one. So you take that experience and of course you can empathize. With your franchisee. So I think that's really fantastic. Maybe you could talk a little bit about Tikiz. What is it and what you guys do. Sure. Well, just like you said earlier, you have to, before a franchisor can really start franchising, they really have to learn the business and make the mistakes and learn how to make it make the model successful. Once you've mastered that, then I think a franchisor is in a good spot to actually launch the actual franchise, to be able to build it the proper way and also support the franchise partners from experience, not just guessing in a sense. So we actually almost, I think a couple weeks ago, was actually 5 years was the start date of when we launched the first Tikiz truck. Wow. Which my father and myself and another partner of ours launched. And then within about a year and a half, 2 years after that, we launched the franchise, which was in December of 2012. And Tikiz, it's a mobile shaved ice and ice cream truck. And we kind of started, we wanted to stick to something kind of mobile. Versus having to pay landlords a lot of rent and kind of be, stagnant in one location and have a lot of risk of, doing an expensive build out and having to kind of wait for the customers to come to you versus in the Tikiz franchise, you can, plan all of your events and everything you schedule and go where the crowds are. So you're kind of going after the business instead of having super long retail hours. You can kind of just go into the concentrated hours for events or for schools or fundraisers or churches and do all your business in a very short period of time, or sometimes long periods of times when they're 2 to 3 day weekends. What was the inspiration, Brian? I mean, because you were an entrepreneur beforehand, and in doing this show such a long time now, there's always great stories. I mean, was that kind of the inspiration, of developing Tikiz? Was the nice hours? It seems like it's a great business model. It's mobile, so you have a lot of advantages right from the get go. Yeah, I have. I've always been into toys when I was a younger. I just had go karts and ATVs and things like that. And I actually collect classic cars and build custom cars as a hobby. So I think when it came to designing my next business with Tikiz, it was kind of I wanted to, like I said, be mobile, so you wouldn't have all those expenses and have all the extra employees and stuff. But it also gave me an opportunity to be creative of building something that was, kind of wild, wild and different and no one's ever seen before. And I kind of just started with a blank canvas, and one of my partners, Brian Evans, we just kind of sat down and, started mapping out what we want the truck to look like. And, I took a lot of my ideas and his creative talents of designing everything, and we pretty much just put something on paper, and that's where it kind of all got started. And,
building designing the truck and coming up with the idea is one thing, but my father has an engineering background. He was the other major component to help me actually put it together and actually build it. So so collectively, with all these different talents and different people that I surrounded myself with, we were able to build what we think one of the coolest trucks on earth.
That's great. What can consumers typically find, like when they come up to Tikiz trucks, Brian, and what sets Tikiz apart from other vendors at the events that you attend? Sure.
Well, in the food. A lot of times people refer to it as a food truck or a lot of the different events. But shaved ice and ice cream, it's very, very low product cost. It's super, super quick to make. The ice cream is actually packaged, so that's very quick, obviously, to collect funds and be able to pass that out. And the shaved ice takes, a few seconds or less to make one. And then the visitors or the customers are able to dispense their own syrups off of the side of the truck from our patented serve board, which we developed when we built the first truck. We can go through lines very, very quickly versus, traditional food trucks take a lot longer because you have to make the food and prepare the food. There's more people in the truck, but you can literally do, hundreds and hundreds of shaved ice and ice cream in very, very short periods of time, which helps get the revenue numbers very, very high in short periods of time.
It's great to have that customization aspect, where your customers can kind of customize, their own flavors and mix and match and, all that other stuff, Brian. I think that's fantastic. Do you have a particular favorite, when you go to your own trucks that you particularly like? Or?
Absolutely. I'm a big fan of the cotton candy for some odd reason. I always get usually I'm pretty adventurous, but I kind of like it. When I like something, I kind of stick with it. So I get the cotton candy shaved ice. And we actually have a cotton candy Smart Snack approved popsicle, actually. So it's those are my two favorite things I usually get on the truck all the time.
That's fantastic. Since you've been doing this a while now, Brian, and you've been involved in franchising a while, what's been the most interesting thing that's happened to you since launching Tikiz?
I have to say it's kind of a cool thing to really see how excited everybody else gets when you're at an event and you're kind of sitting from afar and you can kind of see all the kids if they're coming out for a fundraiser or whatever it is or whatever type of events. You can just see the smiles and how it's kind of wild and crazy to see how they all rush the truck and get all excited and they're just all lining up to get everything. So knowing that you're bringing a lot of smiles to your customers and the kids' faces and knowing they're getting a good treat along with most of the time it's actually fundraising efforts too. So you're also helping that organization, if it's a school or church or whoever, raise money for things that they possibly need for their organization. So it's kind of cool to see both things happening from how happy they get, but also the fun they're able to create.
That's a feel-good business, isn't it, Brian? At the end of the day,
it definitely is.
Put a smile on the customer's face and, to do good at the same time. And that was one of the things that stood out, in your business model. I read that Tikiz is very big on, community outreach. Maybe, you could talk a little bit about, your fundraising programs.
Sure. And I think there's a lot of other, with a lot of organizations, they need funds for many different things. From sporting, athletic programs to, churches to certain schools, big and small, daycares. They all have needs of what they need to do for their own objectives. And with Tikiz, it's we call it the win-win-win scenario where the organization is able to raise some money, and it's raised on the spot too. At the end of the event, we get back 20% of the revenue of the event. So if they did $1,000 at that event, they're giving back $200 right there at the end of the event. And then a lot of the accounts that a lot of our franchise partners have. They do these accounts once a week, once every other week, once a month. So if you really compound that and add that up, and if you had four back-to-back events, let's say for a school, you did an average of $1,000 per event. That's $800 at the end of the month that organization has to put towards something. So that's that really does make a dent in their objectives of raising money for whatever they need.
That's fantastic.
And then obviously the kids get a nice treat, and along with the franchise partner, obviously creating some good revenue for their business.
Sure, absolutely. It's so important. We're speaking with Brian Tolson, as CEO and founder of Tikiz Shaved Ice and Ice Cream. And are there numbers on the industry, Brian? It's pretty safe to say that you're in a pretty big industry, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, when it came down to ice cream, I'm not sure what the stats are now, but I think it was like 93 or 94% of every household in America has some sort of ice cream in the freezer. And I guess it's slated by 2018 that it should be, I think, hit 74 billion is what some industry experts are anticipating from the ice cream frozen dessert sector. So that's $74 billion is quite a large industry. So everybody likes ice cream, and shaved ice has been around for a very, very long time. It's a nice, cool, classic treat that's been around for, like I said, for a long time. So that's not going anywhere. So with those two mixed together, it's kind of our winning recipe.
That's fantastic. How big is Tikiz today, Brian? I mean, how many franchisees and units do you have in your system today?
Sure. Actually, we're building truck 20 as we speak, and we have over 30 more in development. We have a handful of people that are making their trips down for Discovery Days here in South Florida to get a chance to tour our facility where we build the trucks, and also see our franchise office and get a chance to see some trucks out in action, and for them to be able to jump on the trucks and see everything too. So we're growing pretty quick. Our goal is to have sell 100 units in 2016 in sense of development agreements, and we're pretty excited.
That's great. There's certain parts of the country that you are looking to expand, Brian?
Yeah, well, we're actually rolling out a nationwide expansion. Some franchisors may focus on certain states or certain regions, but we've seen, we have a Tikiz truck all the way out in Maui, Hawaii, to Maryland, Texas. I mean, we are currently in 9 states. We have almost, I think, another 4 to 5 states that should be opening this year. In addition to those 9 states, and we're going smooth and steady. We don't want to just focus on large numbers. We want to make sure we grow the concept smoothly and steady, and make sure every franchise partner gets the proper attention they need to get open properly and be successful.
Do you have a vision for how, I hate to say how big you'd like to get, but I mean, if you look like in a crystal ball, Brian, like 3 years down the road, where do you see Tikiz?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, this is started out as a family-based business with my father and I being my primary partner and launching this. And we wanted this to be a fun business. We obviously are in business to make money as well, but we want to really enjoy the franchise partners that we bring aboard and that we work with on a day-to-day basis. And setting goals of opening up units is important. But like I said, our focus is all really on just the quality of each franchise partner and the quality of their business versus the quantity of what that we do. So if we got to 150 trucks and everyone was doing really well, that would be much more gratifying to have 500 to 1,000 trucks and having handfuls of closures from time to time.
That's something. So you were talking a little bit about your franchisees, Brian. I mean, who are your ideal franchisee candidates? And I mean, are there particular characteristics that you look for in your franchisees?
Yes, absolutely. And we have, they range from, many different unique backgrounds. Some are seasoned business owners, but I'd say the majority are not. They've coming from corporate jobs or just something they've been doing for a long time. They just kind of had enough and wanted to have a little bit of a change in their life to kind of get out a little bit more into the community and get out and about and just do some different things in their career and be able to have a little more time to be flexible with their schedule and see their family a little more often. So that's kind of the general norm of our franchise partners to date. But looking for somebody who's for the most part outgoing, enjoys meeting new people. Would be doesn't have to be a perfect networker, but a good networker. It's about building relationships on a day-to-day basis and intertwining yourself in the local community. Obviously being friendly and professional. So those are a handful of the things that we look for from a characteristic standpoint.
It seems like it could be a wide range as far as ages go too, Brian. I mean, as far as like from the 20s all the way to maybe even someone who just recently retired. You know what I mean? It seems like there's a
absolutely
pretty open market.
Yep, in the 20s to the 60s is definitely our range between our franchise partners. So that's we had one of our someone who ran one of our trucks. He was 25 years old and just did a phenomenal job and we have some franchise partners into their 60s that are enjoying it and may have some part-time help here and there just so they don't work too hard. But it's a very large spectrum.
That's fantastic. For listeners who are listening, Brian, I mean, could you describe what is a typical day like as a Tikiz franchisee, if there is such a thing?
Sure. Yeah, well, generally Monday through Thursday, there's a lot more events that are with schools and daycares generally, and we're starting to get into pretty heavy with a lot of commercial accounts with larger corporations, which is actually pretty unique, and we call them ice cream socials. So a lot of people think that shaved ice and ice cream is just for children or younger generations, but we do. Right. You'd be surprised at how many adult events we do. 300 people coming out of a big mortgage corporate office for an ice cream social is what they call it, and some very large companies that actually other large corporations pay to have our truck go to their customers and give out free ice cream, but they pay the bill at the end of the day. So that really fills up the Monday through Thursday, Monday through Friday business, and usually Friday afternoon to all the way to Sunday. That's where more of the events come into play from, large just festivals and fairs and fundraisers, car shows. The list really goes on, and the possibilities of the type of events you can do is very, very vast. But that generally fills up most of the weekend. We have a custom Tikiz software that all of our franchise partners use that helps them keep very organized on their schedule and putting their customer information there, filling in customer data, how they did this year, so they can look back at it next year and say, hey, this event I did X amount of dollars, and so they can make notes on the location or the type of event it was. So that's very helpful to keep our franchise partners organized and to help them grow their business in the future.
That's great. What is the training like, Brian, for new franchisees? Do they typically come to South Florida, and what type of support do you provide to your new franchisees?
Absolutely. We have a little bit of a shorter training, which is over a 3-day period, and it could be longer if it needs to be, but it's generally 3 days, and our new franchise partners come here generally when their truck is being finished. They don't have to, but usually when the truck is finished, they actually come for training, or some elect to do it right away, just depending on their schedule. So we're pretty flexible of working around their schedule and on times and dates. But they come for 3 days, and they get kind of a classroom training for about a day and a half, and it's broken up between the 3 days, and they get to actually learn how to make some of the product and take them to some of the local stores to purchase their product and pick things up, and also take them out on the truck so they can actually see the truck in action and get their hands dirty in a sense and meet customers and collect funds and make shaved ice and give out ice cream. So they really get a real hands-on experience, and it's pretty informal. We have a good time with our new franchise partners and make them feel at home when they're here for the few days, and then usually the last day we actually do some touch up on some classroom stuff, but also walk them through the truck and actually get to drive the truck and look the all the ins and outs and all the maintenance and miscellaneous things you have to do, which is very light. But generally when they leave after the third day, they're pretty up to speed, and a lot of the training still continues. We do a lot of things remotely with them. We help them with certain sales calls and reaching out to local people in the community. So we really it doesn't just stop there. We do a lot of stuff remotely, ongoing before their training and then after their training, and for as much support as they need going forward.
That's great. You've been doing this such a long time now. You've been involved in franchising such a long time now, Brian. And the majority of our listeners, we call them aspiring franchipreneurs. Most of our listeners know that they want to get into franchising, but from our experience in doing this show such a long time now, most of them don't know where to begin because it just seems like there's so much out there today. And from all your experience, what advice would you give to our listeners in their quest to buy a franchise?
Sure, it's a good question. I think the biggest thing that I think that they need to look for is making sure they can really envision themselves doing this business. They have to, number one, enjoy the business, enjoy the industry, kind of try to put themselves in the shoes of what a Tikiz franchise partner would be like. And, so helping them make sure that it's a good fit for them, for themselves, and also for their families as well, because their schedules are a little bit adjusted and stuff. So really helping them through that process, the due diligence to make sure they can see themselves in this business, along with making sure they have the proper finances to comfortably get into the business and not overstretch themselves or put themselves in any financial harm. And also, too, they have to enjoy who they're working with. That's why we're pretty picky with all the franchise partners we bring aboard, because we want to make sure that they're a good fit for us and we're a good fit for them, and together we can help them grow their franchise locally. But it's and I think that's one of the biggest parts is making sure they enjoy meeting the Tikiz team and work well together. So those are some of the big things. And if it's not just with any other franchise, it's just to make sure they do their homework and really walk themselves through the whole process before they move forward.
It seems like Tikiz, in studying the business model too. I mean, it could be, I could see it being a multi-unit kind of franchise model as well, Brian. As the franchise is doing really well, it seems like, of course, why not have 2, 3, 4, 5 of them? I mean, do you envision that as well down the road?
Yeah, and I think a lot of franchisors, sell multi-unit. It's a very common thing in the franchising industry. And I knew with retail spaces or places where you have to actually rent a space, it gets a little difficult because you're really putting out quite a lot of money. Take a lot of financial risk to do so. Although the business may be doing well, you still have to sign your name on the dotted line for rents and different things like that. But with Tikiz, it's a lot more manageable from the cost standpoint, because it's generally a lower overhead business just for the way it's structured. And I'd say just about 80+% of all of our franchise partners are multiple unit. We call them a 3-pack. They sign for 3 franchise agreements at the start, and they generally open up 1 truck a year going forward. And we probably have just a handful of them that just have done 1, which is fine to do 1 as well. But most of our franchise partners that start with a first truck, they very quickly realize that it's a very frustrating but good problem to have, is that they start turning down accounts or turning down events because they're already pre-booked. Right. And then a lot of our franchise partners who have just started out with 1, they actually start recording all the possible lost revenue from not having a second truck or even a third truck. And once they kind of add it up and it makes it hits a certain threshold, it kind of makes sense for them to move forward with a second truck as soon as that period hits.
That's fantastic. What's the best way for our listeners to get more information on becoming a franchisee, Brian? Should they go to the website? Is that the best place to go?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. It's Tikiz.com. It's Tikiz.com. And our Senior Vice President of Development, Scott Mortier, is fantastic at walking our prospective franchise partners through the process of making sure it's a good fit for them and making sure they can get financially qualified and answer all their questions throughout the whole process.
That's fantastic. I want to thank you again for coming on the show, Brian. I think this is a great concept, and I'd already like to invite you back next year as you continue to grow. I think this is fantastic.
Absolutely. I appreciate it, Mark. Thank you for your time, and thanks for having me.
My pleasure, Brian. We'll be right back with more franchise interviews.
Are you looking for a franchise that delivers? Businesses will always need shipping, and for more than 25 years, loyal customers have depended on Unishippers for reliable savings and exceptional customer service. Unishippers is focused on just one thing: helping small and medium-sized businesses save time and money on all their shipping needs. And as the largest reseller of complete shipping services in the country, we have the buying power to ensure that we succeed. The Unishippers franchise offers low startup costs, no equipment or real estate required because they're not retail, residual income, and a quality of life and work-life balance. For more information on becoming a Unishippers franchisee, go to www.unishippers.com and click Franchise Opportunities, or call Franchise Development at 801-708-5822. That's 801-708-5822.
Hi, this is Connie McDermott, Administrative Assistant for Franchise Interviews, LLC, and you're listening to Franchise Interviews.
Franchise Teacher.
Would you like to know how to franchise your concept or grow your franchise business?
Meet the experts at Franchise Teacher.
The goal of Franchise Teacher is to teach, coach, consult, and advise. The team of experts at Franchise Teacher will evaluate your business model and present you with a winning business strategy.
Franchise Teacher will help you decide whether or not your concept works and if it's franchisable. Franchise Teacher is proud to have over 30 years of experience in franchising as both franchisees and franchisors.
Franchise Teacher are developers of over a dozen franchise systems, which include brick and mortar as well as home-based concepts of nearly 3,000 combined franchise locations.
Whether you need to add more units or get more customers, Franchise Teacher can help. We will teach.
Franchise Teacher will help you learn our proven system.
Coach.
Franchise Teacher will help you provide a game plan to succeed.
Consult.
Franchise Teacher will make sure you stay on track.
And advise.
Franchise Teacher will help you learn from our over 30 years of experience in franchising as both franchisees and franchisors. Take advantage of our free, no-obligation phone consultation. Simply go to franchiseteacher.com or call us at 561-385-3032.
That's franchiseteacher.com or call us at 561-385-3032.
Hi everyone, this is Marty McDermott from Franchise Interviews, and welcome to another edition of Great Quotes in Franchising, where each podcast you get to hear a great quote in franchising. You know, Don and I have been hosting Franchise Interviews now for almost 2 years, and in that time frame we've had some fantastic quotes on the topic of franchising. Today you're going to get to hear from Gary Okigrasso of the Desert Moon Fresh Mexican Grill franchise concept. And Gary answers the question, what is the best franchise? It's a common question that Don, myself, and Gary have received over the last decade, and I thought Gary's response was fantastic. He also talks about the three-legged stool of a successful franchise. His answer was brilliant. Today's podcast is being brought to you by Franchise Interviews, LLC, and Franchise Interviews gives you an up-close and behind-the-scenes look at franchising and entrepreneurship through our website, franchiseinterviews.com, where you can hear and read interviews as well as get inside tips from some of the most successful sources in franchising. Our weekly franchise radio show on Blog Talk Radio, where each week you get to hear interviews with franchisors, franchisees, franchise authors, franchise experts, and franchise attorneys, and our franchise newsletter, which is a must-read for anyone looking to buy a franchise. And here we go with Gary Okigrasso of the Desert Moon Franchise Concept.
Running the business as long as I have the passion and the work ethic, really.
And you know, that's a great point. I do several seminars a year on the topic of franchising, and I'll tell you, I don't think that there isn't a meeting that goes by that someone in the audience doesn't raise their hand and ask me what I think, quote, the best franchise is.
I get that all the time. You know, myself, Gary, being in financing, people always asking me.
Same here.
Yeah, and you know, first of all, ultimately that's a money question, and I'm not. I'm one of those folks who believe if you chase money, you won't get any. So. You know, my response over the years has always been the same. It's not about, quote, the best franchise. It's about, really, what is the best franchise for you? What's your passion? What do you love to do? What are you good at? Because, again, you know, quoting Michael Gerber, once you get past that infancy stage where you are the technician, or as we say in our business, the chief cook and bottle wash, you then need to expand your business by getting started on the work of an entrepreneur and bringing the technicians and the managers in to work with you on your business. So to simply ask what's the best franchise is to simply say what's the best automobile. I guess the issue is what's the criterion? What are you looking for? What are you good at? What's your background? And most importantly, what are you passionate about? If you're not passionate about building a business, then chances are you'll get exactly what you may be passionate or not passionate about. And in the case of a lack of passion, that would be nothing.
When people ask that to me, Gary, I say there's thousands of franchises. How the heck do I know?
There you go.
Absolutely. It's a very, for experienced franchisees, and I think you alluded earlier in the top of the show regarding some of the work that my friend Dan Rowe at FranSmart is doing. You know, there are experienced franchisees, certainly the type that Desert Moon is seeking, who have background in the food industry, who understand the business model of franchising, have an organization, and they take a system like Desert Moon Fresh Mexican Grill, and they plug it into their already existing system. And that's one type of franchisee. And then you have another type of franchisee who is the first-time business owner, the entrepreneur, the person who is dreaming of operating their own business and developing a business, whose approach is extremely different. Their approach is much more from a technical aspect, much more local. In the beginning, many of them work, 70, 80, 90, 100 hours a week. Essentially, they buy themselves a job. And I don't mean that in a negative way, because in the beginning, for the first-time business owner, if they're involved in a business that they're unfamiliar with, that's a great way to learn the business. And then they develop from there. So there are different types of franchisees, as well as different types of franchise companies and business models. So I'm convinced there's a good fit for everyone and anyone out there who wants to pursue the use of franchising as a development tool for themselves, either as a franchisee or a small business owner that wants to duplicate their business but doesn't want to open up a bunch of company stores. They want to use franchising as a tool. There are plenty of opportunities out there.
It sounds like Desert Moon will go in either direction in getting a new franchisee, either that already existing business owner experience or the first-time owner, right?
Absolutely. We obviously are cautious about who we bring in as franchisees. If you look at what I refer to as the three-legged stool of a successful franchise operation, the three legs are the concept, the operator, and the location. The first piece, the concept, I'm confident regarding Desert Moon Fresh Mexican Grill because we're a 16, 17-year-old company with a long operating history of success.
Right.
Location is something that is always always up for grabs with potential franchisees because it's elusive in the sense that you need to understand what makes your operation work. So locations look different to different types of operation. But the other piece, the operator, who is the franchisee, that's key. Even in a great location with a great concept, the wrong franchisee could fail. Because the franchisee is the pulse, is the heart of the business. The concept may be the brains, the location may be the legs, if you will, how it stands, but the franchisee is the heart of the business. And what the franchisee takes to the business really will set the tone.
That's interesting.
So we're very careful about franchisees, whether they're experienced or first-time business owners.
That's interesting. What do you look for in a...
Thanks, everyone, for listening, and we'll see you again soon with another edition of Great Quotes in Franchising, brought to you by Franchise Interviews. Take care.